Yes, yes.
I just wanted to reflect very briefly on the day's events. For me, this is, as ever, the CAM conference is a really thought-provoking, interesting day where I get to find out about what everyone is doing in a way that we just don't normally have time for. I particularly enjoyed listening to Matt talk to the students just after lunch. Unfortunately, Matt has had to give his apologies as he's heading down to London for probably a very important meeting of some kind. But what we thought we would do first is ask all of the breakout leaders to give us a minute or two each as a reflection of their thoughts from the sessions that they ran. They can't repeat the sessions, so there isn't the time for that, but what were their takeaways, as quite often breakout leaders don't give themselves that opportunity in their sessions. And once we've been through that, there will be an opportunity for you to ask any questions. So I'm going to hand over first to Julia.
Thank you. So in our session, we were reflecting on our own sort of employment journeys or career journeys. We had a range of organisations talking about how they support people to enter their workforces. And we were also looking at what the challenges are, what the magic ones might be that we would like to see in the future. So this is quite a personal response, things that struck me. We had a fantastic question, when does a career start? And actually, we pretty well agreed, probably about age 11. When we want to be giving young people agency and getting them to think about what opportunities might be coming up for them. Of course, we were lamenting EBAC and the situation in schools and the shortage of teachers and art subjects being cut. But we did have some ideas around that. We thought that the creative industries needs a huge PR campaign. Why we're baffled why people don't get it, and it doesn't have a higher profile, how exciting it is, and that actually it requires us to work much less in silos. Art forms need to be working together across organisations and within organisations to achieve that. We had the suggestion, a helpful suggestion of a list or a map of cultural careers and employment support opportunities in the county. So a lot of the discussion was how to make this all a lot more accessible, and so information was key. And recognising different styles of working and the need for organisations to develop business skills and entrepreneurship for the people that they're working with. And I was wondering about international partnerships, and I was struck by the international cohort here. And actually, we tend to think about our patches, which placemaking, of course, is a very natural place to start. But equally, we have a mobile, hopefully we'll continue to have a mobile workforce. And so how, can we reach out internationally? I'm going to stop there, but thank you.
The really enthusiastic response of people who took part, and the readiness to try and create new interdisciplinary collaborations on the spot. It was quite funny because I said that we usually take 6 months at least for the dialogue to be over before we can start an interdisciplinary project, and gave them 10 minutes each to come up with one. But we came up with some wonderful ideas which have legs, I have to say. What was also interesting is that first of all, there was an awareness of interdisciplinarity as something that's different from multidisciplinarity. So it's not just about experts coming together and using their expertise, but it's about people coming together and giving up their expertise and entering, leaving their comfort zone and discovering new aesthetics, new ways of working together and creating new projects. So people were very aware of that from the very beginning. And there was also another point that was raised was about challenging, if you like, I don't know how to refer to it, the sort of the danger, the sort of elitism that discipline-based practices can create by creating their own specialized language, their own audiences. Whereas with interdisciplinarity, it's not just about artists and non-artists or experts in other fields getting together. It's also about working with the public. So their contribution to the creation of that sort of interdisciplinary practice is essential. They're not just audiences or participants that come and enjoy. And finally, I would say, for example, in the context of, we talked a lot about the different disciplines, but in the context of science, that this is not just about, impact. It's not just about, finding ways of expressing, a complicated vocabulary that's all there for the simple public, but quite the contrary. It's about interdisciplinary practice is about creating new knowledge in itself. And just to finish, one of our participants in the last session said that if you put a graphic designer, a writer, and a field recorder together, you'll probably end up with a rocket going to the moon. So that was an example of how ambitious an interdisciplinary practice can be. And really, it's opened my eyes to how this has legs and can go forward. And I'd like to thank everyone who took part.
Is it working? Yeah. So I'm Jane Rich, and I'm from Cambridge Community Arts. And I spent quite a lot of time talking about CCA and what we do and our model of working, which is about improving mental health with creativity. We talked about the power of creativity to transform people's lives, and how with that power becomes a sort of big responsibility to do that well. Because working with a lot of people who've been let down, it's really important that if you're going to choose to work in this field, that you're not going to do that very thing you're trying to help sort of alleviate. So I think I had a lot of support from my groups in terms of what we're doing works well. And I think what came out of today for me was the thought about how emerging artists can get involved in this kind of community work, because we encourage people to sort of move through our courses, and some of them become tutors. But we talked a lot about best practice and what it takes to be a really good creative tutor for working with adults with experience of mental ill health. And I'm really interested to sort of help build pathways for people who are working or wanting to work in the field to actually gain the experience they need to do that well. So I think that was it. Oh, one thing that came to me when Matt was talking to the students is mentoring, some kind of mentoring scheme. We've all got all this expertise in all these arts organisations. Can we not set up some kind of mentoring scheme for students? Just an idea.
Hi, I'm Chris Trevorrow. I'm from Cambridge Council for Voluntary Services. My workshop was about looking for funding for social impact. So it was more, how do you actually demonstrate the difference that you're making on a social level, a community level, rather than just for creativity's sake, although that is an excellent thing, she says quickly. So we looked at funding landscape, what the landscape looks like in terms of finding funding for voluntary groups, what sort of grant funding there is, about partnership working, about how to do that well in a very perfunctory way, because it was only a short session. And we looked a lot at evidencing need, about finding the need, and thinking very much about how you demonstrate that. And there was I was really struck at how receptive the groups that I met today were to looking at that, and very open to it. I was also really, the group work, which I do sometimes struggle to get groups to do, I had no trouble at all today. You just let them go, and off they went. The opportunity to talk to each other and share experiences, huge generosity with their expertise, really just sort of getting down to it and helping each other with their project ideas was really, really inspiring. And I've heard some brilliant projects today. I'm really hoping that some people come back to me and if they need any help, so that we can support them. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Michelle Lord. I actually didn't lead a workshop today, but I did deliver a keynote this morning on the Cambridgeshire Culture Card. So I'd be very happy to take any questions from any of you in regard to that, and I'll just pass along.
Well done. So I'm going to be really brief too. And I'll just say, so I was talking about the Library Presents, which is a programme funded by Arts Council, taking arts activities to places right across the county, usually in libraries. And the people that came along to the workshop were really keen to find out more about the programme, how it works. At its heart, it's about communities making decisions about what art goes into their local venue. It's about communities helping us deliver those events. And I think a lot of the conversation was around how to marry that, being the main aim, with the needs of the artists, and how can artists benefit from being part of this programme, and what do they need in order to do their best as part of the programme, and in turn that will help them in the longer term. We have people applying, artists applying from across the country to be part of this, and we're all those of us involved are really keen that we are able to work with locally based, living, working artists in Cambridgeshire and a little bit beyond, perhaps regionally. But so we looked at ways to explore that. Interestingly, when we were thinking about artist development and support needs, what came back was not so much something specific in terms of training, but the opportunities for artists to collaborate. So if we could provide those opportunities for people to share their ideas, people to network with each other, and I think strengthen the offer that then they might be able to bring to really make the programme achieve its aims of excellent quality across the county.
Great, so I'm Lucy Shipp, I'm Education Manager at Wising Arts Centre, and I was facilitating a session with my colleague Imogen Phillips, who works at Kettle's Yard, and we were speaking a bit about our Circuit Conductors programme, which ran in 2017, so that was around training young people aged 18 to 25 in sort of arts facilitation for them to actually go on and become artist facilitators in their own right and work with other young people's groups. We started out actually the conversation by just asking everyone in the room, and it was great, I think, reflecting everyone else's comments, that everyone was really kind of keen to share their experience and take part in the discussions. But just for everyone in the room to actually share a skill that they'd like to kind of share with other people, or that they could share with other people, and one thing that they'd like to learn as well. And I think that just highlights it could be something simple like bread making or tasting, but it also could be something more complex and kind of practical skills around fundraising bids as well. And I think that just highlights the nature of partnership working for me, that actually it doesn't have to be this kind of big beast that you have to get perfect every time. It can just be quite a simple conversation and kind of starting kind of the seeds off quite small and thinking, how can we actually grow it from there? And I think that just kind of built on the conversations through there of actually thinking we're all artists or from arts organisations representing various different people, and actually what can we kind of come together to curate or collect, how can we actually support young people into kind of arts employment. So we spoke around how people had actually been successful in kind of getting their first steps on their career into the arts, or what had been that turning point, or what do they think would really help kind of having that turning point, so similar to the first speaker. And actually sharing those opportunities, thinking what makes success. And I think a lot of it is around kind of confidence, but also it came out kind of actually just knowing that those opportunities exist. And so I think there's some quite simple things that could be done around just sharing the opportunities that we all have in this room that there might be to take part in, and kind of being collaborative about it. So some quite easy wins, but also we also had a lot of similar conversations maybe around, is there a way that we could group together to kind of provide mentoring support? I know that a lot of artists at Wising, for example, would be keen to support that as well, and actually kind of getting a pool of people together and just making it kind of maybe informal or more formal and getting a bit of a structure together. But the other thing that we spoke about that was interesting, and I suppose because we'd framed the conversation around the circuit conductors model of 18 to 25-year-olds that we were supporting, was also how do we define kind of people who are entering their career in the arts? Should it just be the focus on young people, or should we just say, how do we actually support new people who are wanting to enter the arts? So that could be someone who's gone on to do their sort of postgraduate degree at 50, but still wants to enter the arts sector as a kind of second or third career. And how should we kind of frame those opportunities as well? So there were some interesting conversations around that too.
Hello, I'm Lorna O'Brien. I'm the Creative Manager for Marketplace, which is a Creative People and Places programme. I talked a bit about the national programme, the Creative People and Places programme, and Marketplace's part within that. Our project focuses on 7 towns in Fenland and Forest Heath. And it's an audience development programme. We're aiming to develop audiences' interest and appetite for the arts in the places where they live. One of our main focuses is working with people in the local communities. It echoes an awful lot of what's being talked about here, to give people a voice, to give people agency, to give people a say in what happens in their places, and to enable people to have some direction in what goes on, and what they want to see and what they want to participate in. So we had a very participatory session led by myself and 2 creative agents for our project, who are Ali Atkins and Colin Stevens, sat at the front here. We wanted to make it fun, but we also wanted to make the point about how we have to approach our work with people in the communities. Our project's been going for 4 years now. All the CPP projects are looking at a longer-term vision, which is quite unusual in the arts, very unusual in funding. But it really reflects the need to build relationships and to build trust and to build the types of opportunities and environments in the communities so that people are willing to take a risk, to get engaged, to find out what it is they might want to do, or to try something and decide that it isn't for them. It's an action research programme, so it gives us a lot of opportunity to experiment, to test things out. So we gave people the opportunity to have a quick speed dating arts experience, which people responded to really well, so thank you for your participation in that, everybody who did. And it was very interesting to see how people responded to that, and the fact that those very fast conversations led to some really quite interesting connections straight away. So people were identifying, that's really interesting, that relates to my work. That's really interesting. Maybe we could think about how we could work together. And some people swapped contact details. And it can take, I think Lucy said it can take something very small to create something happening. We then tasked people in groups to come up with an event that they might do in a town or location, like the sort of places we're working with in Marketplace. Thinking about the audiences, thinking about how they might address some of the issues that we face in very rural areas. So that was one of the prime things that people needed to consider. But also some of the obstacles that they might face. We're dealing with towns with very different characteristics, different politics, different opinions about things, different aspirations, and it's really very much a case of working with people rather than doing something to people. So we were trying to get that message across as well. Everybody took part really energetically, so thank you for your participation.
Thank you, everyone. I think just a couple of words before I hand over for questions. Key things that so many of you used the word generosity. You talked about openness. You talked about the small things that lead to collaboration, and I think that's a huge takeaway from today. Partnership does not have to be about a big funding bid, lots of people sitting in a room and writing lots of documents. It's about talking to the people next to you, finding out what they do, and looking for connections. Right, questions. Somebody must want to ask a question.
So, Michelle, hello. Can you tell us what was your keynote about the comics?
So Ruthie's question was, what was my keynote about this morning, because she missed that. So essentially I talked about the Cambridgeshire Culture Card scheme, and I related that to in the context of the conference, which is around collaborative and partnership working. So in essence, the Cambridgeshire Culture Card is providing a proposal to adopt and adapt the existing library card as a universal cultural passport that will be rolled out in all schools for children and young people. The examples that I gave earlier was the live prototype that we delivered between August and December last year, and what some of the initial findings of that work was, and the fact that we were developing a digital platform and testing whether that was a way that could effectively support a whole range of organisations to come together, working towards common goals of increasing engagement by children and young people, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we had a focus on children with free school meals or pupil premium status, coming together so we could jointly communicate the value of cultural engagement. So, for example, through a creative CV. So it was presenting the user's data back to them. And then thirdly, around being able to create a robust evidence base. So we collected a lot of engagement data and also data on the cultural offer. And I think that was quite interesting, certainly for me as an arts development officer, because I hadn't realised actually how underrepresented some of the art forms are. But it gave us a mechanism to look at what the free offer is, the paid offer is, how that relates to areas of local deprivation and who those activities are serving. So we're still actually crunching that data and getting lots and lots of learning out of it. And so I think that's probably the gist of the presentation. But I talked a lot about how we'd experimented with gamification as well, because that was what young people had identified, having a common cultural currency. The web portal, an app that we created, actually had nearly 400 activities from 30 providers over that period of time. So it was just kind of really saying this is the kind of collective information that we've got. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hi, could I ask 2 questions? One's really quick, which is, Michelle, all the stats that we saw in your presentation earlier, are they available to the public or to us to look at?
Yeah, so, I'm still working on the evaluation, but certainly the slides, the slides can be disseminated to all of you, so we'll definitely be doing that, and I'm looking to Akua, I'm not sure where she is. There she is.
That would be really interesting, thank you.
Yeah.
The other, sorry.
And I just would like to say as well that when the full evaluation is done, we can make that available to the network.
Great, thank you. The other question was to the organisers of this event, how doable would it be to organise a similar event, but geared more towards students so that people could come and represent their arts organisations or whatever projects they're working on for the next, say, 6 months or a year, and students could come along and have those conversations with artists and with facilitators and see talk about those opportunities for volunteering and paid work in person. Thanks.
Okay, that is doable. We will need to have conversations with the School of Creative Industries and think about how we might do that. I mean, it's a really good idea. I think a lot of what came out of today was about that connection between the arts organisations, the network in the city and the students. And this was our first... We've been collaborating with Anglia Ruskin University for a number of years on this conference, but this was the first time we really properly engaged with the student body, and it's been fantastic. I think we can see some of the students here, and I just want to say thanks to all of them who've been recording today. But I think this is the first step on what is very clearly a needed trajectory. So yes, I think.
More than a question, can I shout out a call for action and a homework for everyone? I'd like to thank the Arts Network for including a diverse range of articles at the back of the programme. I wrote one on LGBT inclusion. We've got one on disability access, mental health access, fair pay for artists and union representation for artists. Can I challenge everyone to read the articles and think about the questions posed in them and make sure that arts organisations are responding to these things? I think a lot of the issues raised in the article articles selected have been below the radar or not properly catered to before. So I hope homework for everyone, read and respond to those.
Thank you. Yes, I did mean to mention them at the end, but yes, don't just dispose of your delegate packs. There are some really interesting reads in there as well. We couldn't fit everything in every time, and one of our previous conferences is focused on diversity. We wanted to make sure that that wasn't getting missed out this time round. Thank you.
My name's Emily Bradfield. For those of you who know me, you'll know that I bang on about evaluation and research all the time. At the beginning of the day, Simon talked about the triangle of the arts, the cultural industries, and research. And from my perspective, there's been a lack of talk about evaluation, evidencing, and research throughout the day in the different sessions. So I'm just interested to hear people's ideas about or how people are evidencing what they're doing. The marketplace one, for example, you talk about it being an action research project. What's the research element and how is it being evaluated?
I'm going to hand the mic down. Very brief answers, I think, on this one. It's a big topic.
I'll be brief. Yes, you're absolutely right. And we did talk a bit about evaluation and the action research side of the project in our session. There are a lot of resources on the Creative People and Places website, if anybody wants to go and visit there, which talk all about the action research side of the national programme, which is very much to the fore. We are held to account in our project in terms of evaluation and the action research approach, and particularly in our phase 2, we're really building in that action research cycle of planning, delivery, reflection and evaluation, so that we really embed that in the work that we're doing, and we involve the local communities in all of that. We're looking at creative approaches to evaluation as well. So any suggestions from anybody who is already doing all of that sort of stuff would be very welcome too.
Great. I was just going to say, as part of the Circuit Conductors programme, I know we did evaluation on the core programme, but actually it's quite interesting to kind of reflect on that. The programme was in 2017, and actually we're still working with some of the circuit conductors to actually deliver workshops. And so for me, that sparks the question, what do we do now, and how do we keep evaluating the success and kind of learning from those projects as well? How can we make it better? But also to add that kind of at Wising, and I know at University of Cambridge Museums as well, they've been looking more into evaluation and looking at kind of logic models and theories of change, and actually more building that into the development of the programmes and in that similar sort of reflective cycle. And so I think it is very much on people's radars at the moment, and kind of building that into programme creation and evaluation.
Just as the microphone's passing out, I'll say, yes, of course, evaluation is absolutely a requirement, not only from the funder and supporters, but I think in order for us to build the programme, I said before, it's very much about responding to what communities got. We couldn't do it without evaluation.
This one's quite an easy one for me, really. So, yeah, the idea of creating a project where from the outset you've considered your research approach, you've considered the methodologies that you'll use to gather information and how you will measure impact against a set of research outcomes has been kind of at the forefront of the work that we're doing with the Culture Card. We'll shortly find out, for example, if we are going to be going through as a founding partner in a very large partnership bid to become the AHRC UK Centre for Cultural Value, for example, and that's very much around pulling together research and analysis from a variety of places, including international research. And we hope that if that goes ahead, that we will be recognised as a founding partner. If that doesn't, we still have an academic research partner in Loughborough University. We're also developing a data science approach to being analysing this data. So this includes not just actually cultural engagement, because culture doesn't obviously exist in a vacuum. It's about relating that information to other data around education, post-16 outcomes, soft skills, transport, health and well-being. So we're actually creating a data infrastructure to be able to ask questions and have robust evidence to be able to answer that.
I'd just like to say, I think bringing perhaps those last two questions together, Meg was saying about bringing the network of arts organisations together for the students, but I think equally, I know certainly my organisation would really welcome any interest from any researchers in the university who are interested in arts and mental health, for example. But I think it's a two-way thing, and if this relationship is going to build, that's a great thing for all of us.
I'll just quickly say that we've set up a think tank called Unframed in order to bring people together and also look at the process of research and creating projects. So interdisciplinary process is a lot about dialogue and different stages, and all of these need to be evaluated in order to go forward. So this is it's a different way of looking at it. Also because there's no facilities really for the type of projects that we do. So evaluation, new forms of evaluation that reflect the type of work is really essential, I agree.
For Cambridge Music, we think of evaluation and research in slightly different ways. Evaluation, like my colleagues here, is something we do all the time. Research it has a level of rigour that we can't do all the time, but it's one of the fantastic things that comes out of our partnerships with the two universities in the city. So for us, welcoming students into what we do in placements, one of the benefits for us is that it gives us access to a community of research which then we can draw on to enhance and inform our work and be part of that community.
I think, have we got one more?
Thank
that
you.
will be it.
Thank you. I feel like there's a bit of an elephant in the room, really, because collaboration isn't always a good thing. And we are forced into it to some degree because of austerity cuts at the moment. We're forced into thinking about ways of working together and accepting sponsorship and partnerships that can sometimes be quite unethical. And I don't think we've looked at the negative sides at all of collaborative working and partnerships and why we're being forced into doing that.
I'm just going to answer this
I just add about the Sackler sponsorship of Kettle's Yard as an example.
Yeah. The focus of today was on the positive aspects of collaboration and partnership working. If we want to have a debate as a network around the negative aspects of that, there are lots of ways, including the long reads that don't just get published in the delegate handbook, but do go on throughout the year. But I think taking on board what you've said, I would like to very much focus on the positive conversations that have happened today. This is not collaboration around austerity. This is collaboration, creativity at its heart often is about collaborative practice. It's about the liminal. It's about the connectivity between things that aren't always necessarily seen as obviously connected. And I think that's what I've heard today, is that it's not about cost saving, it's not about having to deal with a difficult situation, it's about the opportunity and the creativity that comes out of challenging yourself by thinking about things in a different way, which is very often what comes out of a collaborative process. So I can't answer your question in relation to today because we didn't look at that. We were looking at that positive element to collaboration. I hope that answers your question in the short term, and if you want to put in a long read, we would be very happy to look at that and put it out for you. I'm going to wrap up now because we're over time. Thank you all very much for staying. It's been fantastic to hear from the breakout leaders how committed and engaged everyone has been today. I'd just like to thank Anglia Ruskin once again for their hospitality, for their engagement, for the students' fantastic work throughout the day. They have been doing all of the photography, the recording, and the graphic recording for the whole day. So I think we should give them a round of applause.
Jane, there's also been stewards, workshop assistants, and social media operators as well.
Yeah, so they've been... And with that, I think I can call the conference to a close for this year. So thank you all very much. Thanks again to all of our breakout leaders and the keynotes who were with us and have moved out and on to other things today. So thank you very much.